I'm talking today with Keenan Skelly. Keenan is Cadence's chief evangelist, well known in the industry. So Keenan, first of all, great to have you. Thanks so much for your time today. I look forward to learning from you. My first question is, you, Sir Cadence, you saw this train coming. You saw the need, the gap. What happened? What led your company to go in this direction?
That's a great question. Here at Sir Cadence, we've actually been building cyber ranges for decades for the military and for some of the DoD customers. And, originally our company actually started out as a gaming company. So we have this rich history of building complex models and complex games. And when we saw how the military was really going about the training of a cyber warrior, the whole concept of building up a range and having people go through some tasks on there, it was really kind of boring. And so we had to look at that, and we reached back into our history of gaming, and we said, there's really a lot of more efficient, more capable ways of doing this. And that's kind of how Project Ares specifically evolved, taking the idea of using gamification, of using artificial intelligence, and using some other new technologies that weren't really on the market at the time. We were able to create something that made a lot more sense for really scaling this whole cybersecurity issue.
Thanks. So you mentioned scale. What does it take to build a range? Will this be enough, gamification, range-based training, will this be enough to fill this 2 million person talent gap that we're going to be facing in this field?
Well, honestly, that really depends on how quickly organizations are willing to accept augmentation and automation. Here at Sir Cadence, we really believe that those two things are what's going to propel the cybersecurity workforce in the future, and we've tried to integrate that into everything that we're really working on. So if you look at what it takes to really build out a cyber range, it's very people intensive. You have to have red cell or opposing force who can come in and do pen testing on your sort of company to see what your faults are. You have to have your defenders, you have to have your actual teams maybe pull away from their jobs and go to a site to do a kind of exercise like this or a training event like this, which is also expensive and takes them away from doing their everyday job. So you have to have something that's available easily 24/7, preferably in the cloud, and something that's really going to grab their attention and make them want to be a part of it. But by using a platform like this, you also get the opportunity to really understand how people are acting in a cybersecurity environment. One of the biggest issues with automating a lot of the functions that are done by cybersecurity defenders today is that we don't know how everybody acts as a defender. We know some processes are done this way and some processes are done this way. But by really getting out there and getting a lot of people to get into this type of platform, we get to start understanding how we can better help them and automate some of the things that they shouldn't really be doing, that are really low-level tasks, so that the human element can really focus on the things that are important.
So the human element, that's important to me. Are ranges meant for cyber professionals only? Are they for all corporate or enterprise employees, the average end user? Who should really be using a range?
That's such a great question. And a lot of people, I know when we first started talking to organizations, a lot of people would come to me after a conversation with their company and say, hey, can I just get this for myself so that I can use it? Even if the company doesn't get it, can I just use it on my own? Which kind of led us down the path where we are now, where you can get an academy license or something like that. But it's really for everybody. We really started targeting sort of the large market, the large companies that were having already had a very large presence in cybersecurity. And this works very well for them. We also have nation state customers who use this to train, cyber ninjas around the world. But we also use this at the very base level as well. We use this to train Girls Who Code and Cyber Patriot and Girl Scouts. So the idea behind a truly interesting gamified cyber range is that anybody can pick it up. Anybody can walk into this and start learning about cybersecurity, or learn more and start to reskill or upskill themselves within the environment.
That's great. So you're clearly building what I think is industry-leading capability. The technology is there. Let's say people understand the importance of training. It's great that individuals have the opportunities to learn at their own pace, or in role-based training, what have you. But from an organizational level, who do you perceive in your interactions, and who do you perceive as being in charge of this initiative of cyber training for enterprises, or who should be in charge of it?
That is a tough question right there. So in my experience, it's kind of all over the place right now. And I think because cybersecurity has instantly become, due to all of the breaches that have happened in the last 3 to 4 years, has really become the forefront of a lot of companies' kind of budgeting and ideas. So it depends on the size of the company, and it also depends on how their business structure is. So I've seen everything from the CIO maintains the budget that ultimately trains all of the cyber folks in the organization. I've seen it where the CISO is really the budget owner who allocates that throughout a company. I've also seen cross-functional budgetary sort of markers within large companies, where you might have 15 different people who have budgets for cybersecurity, and they're allocating them at a very low level, but they don't necessarily tie into the larger sort of cybersecurity strategy of the company. So I think that that's something that we definitely, as a space, need to work on, and need to identify better ways of controlling the cybersecurity budget to make sure that it's actually being effective across the entire organization, really strategically and all the way down to the individual level.
So let's talk budget. This is a new way of learning. Clearly one that I think will be more attractive to younger employees, those entering the workforce, perhaps seeking a career in cybersecurity. So in terms of budget, what advice can you give budget owners in companies or governments or state and local or universities, what have you? What sort of budgets do they need to be thinking about if they want to invest in gamified learning through ranges?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's almost twofold, because first of all, when you're talking about the gamified cyber range, something like an Ares type deal, you're talking about content that's very specific, that talks about very specific threats, that works you through tools. It's more for the technical part of your cybersecurity workforce, but that can't be all of it. You have to have a cyber workforce that really understands a lot more about cybersecurity than they do currently. There's a lot of companies out there like, PhishMe and KnowBe4 who do an excellent job of addressing the phishing threat. But one of the things that we think about here at Circadence is what about everything else? How do you really teach basic cybersecurity awareness that really encapsulates a lot of difficult concepts into something very fun and very usable? And we think that that's really how we have to move forward with this. So it's kind of a multi-pronged approach. You have to cover your human attack surface very well with the right kind of security awareness platform, which is not a PowerPoint or or one of those videos where they kind of walk you through and show you what Nancy did wrong. It has to be more immersive, like this type of style here. So we have a product coming out that's Insight that really addresses that kind of market, but then also really driving home the cyber range, the more technical piece of it, so that your entire organization is meshed together in one sort of cybersecurity.
Yeah, that's great. I agree. Well, Keenan, thanks so much for doing this with me. This is a great overview, introduction to what your company is working on. I think it's a really, really important field to get into. I'm glad that you and Sir Cadence are tackling this very difficult topic.